Round 11 tips. Now, last week, mate, I was on track to get 8 out of 9. You know, I was like, I forgot what game I originally missed. I think it was. I can't remember what game I got wrong last week, actually. Before the two outstanding games happened between. Well, Melbourne somehow beat Brisbane, and then West Coast got their first win of the season. So, but we've got some banging games this week, and we've probably got the best game of the season coming up. Tomorrow night, it is the Dogs and the Cats facing off. Bailey Smith has made this game 1,000 times better. 1,000 times better. The guy he's so good for footy. He speaks his mind, he shit stirs, and he makes every game watchable. And then he's very good on top of that. So, it is at GMHBA, so Geelong's home ground advantage, of course. But, mate, are the Dogs scary? Geelong will be without a few players, which, is concerning. But they do get a few back. I believe Tom Stewart's back in the frame. Bailey Smith obviously got the AOK to play against the Dogs. And then I believe Jack Henry also might be coming in. So Patrick Dangerfield is a massive loss for the Catters, but I still think they're a very strong team. But then you look at the Bulldogs, they might have the best midfield in the league. I don't know how they have so many good midfielders. It's absolutely insane. I mean, Treloar is expected to return in this game as well. So, it's going to be massive. It is going to be massive at GMHBA. And I'm actually going to side with the Dogs here. I think they've been more consistent than Geelong. Obviously, they're higher than them on the ladder, but I think without Dangerfield, that midfield is extra weak. I know Dangerfield's been spending more time forward, but, you take away more of your goal scorers, I guess. I mean, hopefully, well, for Geelong's sake, that, Stengel can maybe step up. Jeremy Cameron, I thought he would, be comfortably in the Coleman race. He's not yet. He may get there, but, I'm going to go the Dog to win this by 16 points at GMHBI. I think it'll be a cracking game. And I think the Cats will actually lose this one. I think Bailey Smith will be eating his own words. But, mate, it's going to be the best game of the year, I reckon. Like, I don't think you'll get close to topping it. Either that or Richmond versus Carlton, just given what type of game that was. Friday night, it is dream time at the G. Not much to say about this. Essendon, I think their fans would be happy with how they've started the season. I get they have had a pretty decently easy fixture. But, mate, you've picked some good wins up against both Port Adelaide and Sydney. So sitting just outside of the 8 with a game in hand is not bad whatsoever. But I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I do think they beat Richmond. And I think they get it done quite comfortably. I think they'll win this by 34 points. Despite a very poor week last week against the Dogs, they should bounce back comfortably here. I think Richmond are kind of in that zone where they're just going to start, losing games. They're not going to put on that exciting story of, getting out of the bottom 4, I don't think. I think that kind of time is done. But, man, they're an exciting group, Richmond. I mean, you got to give them credit. They've had 3 wins this year, so most people didn't even have them for 1. And if you had them for 1, or you only had them for 1, I mean, I don't think many people had them for even 2, let alone 3 in the first 10 games. So fair play to them, but I've got Essendon winning this one comfortably. The battle of the inconsistents here. I mean, you've got Giants who have lost 4 of their last 5, and then Carlton who just keep going win-loss, win-loss. I mean, you somehow beat Geelong and then get whacked by 10 goals. And then, I don't know how to explain this team. I lost to Sydney last week, who Sydney weren't playing well. I generally don't know how to tip either of these sides, to be honest. But Carlton lost last week, as did GWS, more embarrassingly, at home. I think with the fact that GWS have to travel and that Carlton loss, I think Carlton will win this game. There's really nothing behind it. They've both got decently fit squads. I think, GWS do have the fittest squad, but, a lot of people said that they were going to dominate this season. I was one of them that thought they would start slow, then kick in when their players came back, and technically that is wrong, but also right, because I tipped them to finish 6th. They're 8th currently. So, they've got a lot to turn around, the Giants, but I'm going to favour Carlton. I don't know why. There's nothing specifically that is leaning me towards tipping Carlton. I get that they didn't have De Koning last week. That is massive, not having Tom De Koning. Sam De Koning, sorry. getting my De Konings mixed up. But yeah, I think Carlton will win this game, and I think they'll win it by 2 goals at Marvel. They'll bounce back. They're just too inconsistent, both these sides, to tip, and I'm not confident with this one whatsoever. The Hawks take on the Lions at the G on Saturday afternoon, and there's a reason that the percentage is so far into our favour for winning this game, and it's because simply it's not even going to be close. I think Hawthorn win this one comfortably, if I'm going to be honest. I mean, the fact that we probably gave Gold Coast the best run for their money that they've ever had at that stadium, without a top 5 key forward in the league, and I will argue that with anyone, a top 5 or 6 ruck in the league, and then you've got the run of Jarman Impey, who would have suited that conditions perfectly, and then Connor Nash just is so underrated. You know, people just look at the possessions of an inside midfielder and are like, well, that's what they're there for. If they're not racking up 30 touches a game, then they're not good. I think that's a stupid way to look at it. I mean, do you really think that James Worpel, you know, would have done a better job than Connor Nash on bloody Matt Rowell? No way. The size of a midfielder is extremely important. He's there to lay tackles, get out their clearances, try to stop other teams from getting clearances. And again, you saw that with a good midfield like Gold Coast, absolutely battered us in the midfield. Because I mean, Rowell just shrugged every tackle. If you have a tackling machine that's a good body size like Connor Nash, you know, I think sure he will shrug a few, but it's differed a lot, and then boom, you get another stoppage and another go at it, rather than just getting battered straight up. So yeah, Connor Nash's role is a lot more important than what people will ever give it credit for, because all people care about these days is stats rather than the impact. And you've seen that over with our midfield. And again, Cam Mackenzie had to come versus the best midfield after a couple of weeks out. Cal Shadir had to come in for his first game of the season and play on Mac Andrew. He was practically invisible. I mean, the guy had 5 touches and had no impact whatsoever. You compare that to Gunston, and you know what I was happy with was the small forwards. They were finally performing well. I mean, I think Guinea had 23 and 2. The Wizard, kicked 3, had the 13 touches. Dylan Moore had 20 odd touches as well, and you know McDonald only had the 15. He was a bit more poor, but the small forwards are finally starting to step up for the first time this season. So you mix that with the duo of not Cal Shadir, sorry, Jack Gunston and Marbia Chol, who, you know, kicked one of the goals of the year against the Suns. You know, and then the strong defense, you know, with Impey back in it, the duo between and partnership between him and Amon, because they've always been together, whether it was at Port Adelaide or with us now. And then you've got Weddle and CJ through there. I think you're looking at Brisbane possibly even getting battered. They just have not been good this season. Whereas I feel like the Hawks, sure, they've been behind it and they've looked bad, but you know, against bad teams, you know, as has Brisbane. But when playing good sides, at least the Hawks somewhat show up. I mean, with 7 of 22 out against both Geelong and Gold Coast, 7 and 8 point losses. Whereas you look at Brisbane taking on Collingwood, they got smacked by 50 points. I mean, they couldn't even beat Melbourne when trying to rest players. So, you know, you bring in Meek, you bring in, you know, those other names that I mentioned. You got a Cam Mackenzie that's finally going to be a bit more comfortable. And then Connor Nash, you're basically adding 6 players right there. Or, sorry, 5 players back to that team. And I think that's your best 22 right there. There is no excuses for losing this game, besides Will Day. But if you're seriously going to complain about one player not playing, your team's not good enough. So I think Hawthorn will win this comfortably by 28 points. It may even be more than that. I just can't see a world where Brisbane even get close. I mean, who's scoring their goals, first of all? And then against the second best defence statistically this season, I don't think, you know, they're even going to get close. I think the midfield battle will be closer. It'll probably favour Brisbane a tiny bit more. But, you know, with carry and run, the defence, and then offensively as well, I think Hawthorn will absolutely dominate. And, yeah, they'll win this one comfortably, you know, at the G, and turn around what people are saying will be their downfall era, because I think they'll win 3 of their next 4 games. And, you know, people just say that, oh, you're just saying that because you're a Hawks fan. Well, you know, I've tipped us 7 wins, 3 losses so far this season. If you go back, you know, and look at my videos when I first tipped these games, especially on TikTok, and I've been completely correct. I haven't been correct about every specific game. I tipped us to lose to Sydney, we beat them. I tipped us to lose to Port, we lost to them. And I tipped us to beat Geelong rather than beat Sydney. and obviously we lost to Geelong, but beat Sydney. So, the record's the same. The teams aren't completely correct, but, I called our losses against Gold Coast and Port Adelaide, so, I'm happy with that. And even coming into the week against Geelong, I tipped Geelong coming into it, but when I tipped our first 6 games, I did say we would beat Geelong. So that's kind of what I'm going off rather than, the tipping video actually leading up to it. So, I've tipped us completely right. And I don't think this will be any different. I think, you basically have one of your best 23 missing. And then, you've got your small forwards in form. You got that partnership up forward with the key forwards that are just going to dominate. You've got one of the top ruckmans in the league back. And then obviously you add a very strong halfback runner in Impey, who's very experienced to that list as well. And, I think Hawthorn, quite easily win this. This is the sleep fest of the round, or one of the two. I think Collingwood, I don't need to spend much time on this game. I mean, Collingwood are by far the best team in the league, and then it's probably the Bulldogs next after them currently. They're just winning games, resting players, travelling away and winning without half their squad. They don't really care. They're just having fun at this point. Again, I think they're your premiership favourites right now, and I'm glad I called that at the start of the season. Not many people did. People were kind of 50-50 on whether they'd be good or too old. And, you can go back and look at my, predictions. My first video on YouTube where I said I can see the Pies finishing first and absolutely dominating. And, my words are proven to be right because, they've absolutely dominated. They had one bad game all year, and that's it. But they're going to dominate North Melbourne here. They'll win this by 10 goals at least. I do understand they are resting a few players, as you would expect. But, North Melbourne, they have not been horrible, actually. They've been competitive in the last 4 weeks, picking up a win, obviously, against Richmond. But I think the Pies are just going to be too strong. They probably won't win by 60 because I don't think they play dangerous enough footy. So maybe they win by half of what I just said, given that North Melbourne have actually been putting in some decent shifts. But nevertheless, Collingwood will win this game. Battle of the mid. That's all I have to say. I mean, Fremantle, I don't know if they're good or not, if I'm going to be honest. They keep beating weird sides like GWS and Adelaide, and, I think they can only win at home, but then they finally go travel away and win a game. But, it's just so weird. This season is so weird, so competitive, so strong. I see a world where Port Adelaide win this game, to be honest with you, but I just can't see it. They've been battered 70-plus points 3 times this season already, and they're bottom 4, Port Adelaide. That is crazy. Fremantle are just outside of the 8, and, given Port Adelaide are just adding to that injury list, Horne-Francis now out, I just don't see a world where at Optus Stadium, Fremantle choke this. I can't this time. They did last time I tipped them because they were playing at Optus. But I just can't see a bottom 4 Port Adelaide side that are playing so poor. They just got whacked yet again. I mean, I think they've won one of their last 4 or 5 games, Port Adelaide, and it was an 8-point win against North Melbourne at Adelaide Oval. So, I'm going to go Fremantle by 18 points. But, we'll have to see. I mean, they've beaten the Dogs as well. They just keep beating these top sides and making themselves look good, but then just winning these weird games. They just don't make sense. They really don't, Fremantle. I mean, losing to Melbourne, but we'll get into Melbourne in a second. But I'm going to go Fremantle to win this game. Now, this is the sleep fest of the round. It is Adelaide taking on West Coast. I get West Coast had their fun, finally got their win. Of course, they did it for, Selwood, which was, crazy what's been going on with that family over the last few months. But... it was a beautiful win. And St Kilda, Jesus. We'll get into them soon. But, Adelaide win this game and win it quite comfortably. I think they'll get the job done by probably 10 goals plus. They're a dangerous attacking team and they're not going to stop. They're probably going to... This might be the biggest win of the season here. You could be looking at in between 60 and 120 points if I'm going to be real. But Adelaide are going to win this with ease. It's not going to be close. Melbourne take on Sydney. Now, again, Melbourne are not inconsistent. They were just very bad, and now they're actually very fucking good. I mean, Sydney, man, they're inconsistent as shit. They just, they beat GWS, then they lose the next week, then they beat Carlton when travelling away. They've got to travel to the MCG, or I guess they just stay put as they were already in Melbourne, but I'm assuming they would have went back up to Sydney for a bit, then come back to Melbourne. But yeah, they are favourites here. Is that surprising? Not really. But one of these teams here have won 4 of their last 5 after starting 0-5 and sit above a bottom 4 Port Adelaide, even though they started 0-5. This is the Hawthorn of this season, or of last season, sorry, Melbourne. They're looking very, very good. Beating Fremantle, beating Brisbane. Brisbane's a massive one. Their only loss in their last 5 games was to us. But again, we're apparently overrated because it took us a long time to beat them, even though no one in the last 5 weeks besides us have beaten them. But they're looking very good and dangerous. And at the MCG, call me wild, I'm tipping Melbourne. I am tipping Melbourne. I think they're looking very, very good. They're looking very impressive. Their young guns are just going right at it. Lindsay is absolutely insane. I mean, how good does he look? And Langford as well. Oh, just beautiful players. Beautiful young talent these guys have that are coming in. And, Clary looks like he might be back into form. I don't want to jinx him, and I don't want to say anything too early because, it hasn't been consistent enough. Petrarca's just Petrarca, and then Max Gawn is the greatest ruckman of all time. The forward line is starting to, show something as well. Pickett is actually being more consistent, which is nice to see. I think Melbourne will win this game, and I think they'll win it by 2 goals. And it would be a Sydney thing to do. I thought Sydney were going to come back into the season and eventually make the 8. Now, that may happen, but I don't think that'll happen until Callum Mills and Errol Goulden are properly back. I don't know if either of those have been confirmed back this week. I don't think so. I still think they're a few weeks away. But I'm going to go Melbourne for somewhat of an upset. But looking at the percentage, it's actually not that much of an upset. But I'm going to go Melbourne by 2 goals. I'm very impressed by them. And to end the round, you've got St Kilda at Marvel taking on the firing Gold Coast Suns, who have just beaten Hawthorn and Bulldogs back-to-back. It would be a Gold Coast thing to do to finally travel away from home and then just lose, after being so used to those conditions. And it would be, in Melbourne, mate, if you live in Victoria, the last few days have been fucking freezing for no reason. Whereas obviously in Gold Coast, it's literally the pure opposite, or Darwin. And it would also be a St Kilda thing to do to lose to West Coast and then just beat Gold Coast, one of the informed teams. Just like they do with Geelong every time they play them for no reason. But I am going to go Gold Coast. I've literally no reason to tip St Kilda here. I do think they could pull something off, but with how good Gold Coast are at the moment, I just can't. You can't beat the Dogs and Hawthorn, 2 top 4 sides, or top 4 threatening sides at least, back to back, and then not beat St Kilda, who've just given West Coast, who started 0-9, their first win of the season. Give me Gold Coast by 22 points. They're really going to, solidify themselves as, 100% playing finals footy this year. And not just that, but pushing for top 4, and they're going to be, something scary. Easy fixture, get to camp at home. And yeah, that is that. I think Gold Coast will win this game by 22 points. So to recap, I've got the Dogs beating Geelong at home. I think 15 of the last 18 Geelong have actually won, which is absolutely crazy. And I'm very tempted to go them. I feel like Bailey Smith will just, piss on the Dogs, but I feel like Dangerfield's a massive out, and that midfield will just absolutely crumble Geelong to the ground. Richmond will not show up. Well, they will show up for Dreamtime, I'm sure, but Essendon will bounce back and get a win. It'll actually be a close game, I think. Carlton will beat GWS. I don't really have a reason for that. I just feel like, you've got to pick one of them at that point. It's just 50-50. Hawthorn will 125% beat Brisbane at the MCG. I am so confident. I have not been more confident for a game. Just about the whole season. North Melbourne, you might show up and do something, but you're losing to Collingwood. Fremantle will beat Port Adelaide. Adelaide will smack West Coast. Melbourne will upset the Swans, if it is even an upset. And then Gold Coast will win away and solidify themselves as a top 4 contending threat. And my 3 guarantees for this round, give me Hawthorn. I've got to think about this. Give me Hawks. I think that's a guarantee. Man, the other ones are just, give me Hawthorn, Essendon, and give me Adelaide. I'm going to pick a boring one there because I don't think the other ones are Actually, give me Gold Coast rather than Adelaide. Give me Gold Coast, give me the Hawks, and give me Essendon as your three guarantees for this round. So, yeah, there you go. My round 11 tips. I apologise for this being late and on the day. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't do this yesterday, to be honest with you. But I had a hectic day today, obviously, work. 8 hours, which is fun. And then, obviously, traffic on the way home was all of that annoying stuff. Anyway, let me know what your tips are, and up the Hawks.